Hello, everyone. This is Natalie K. Lilico from Align with Your Design Coaching, and today I'm with Elaine Muir. She is a 3/6 profile manifesting generator, and we're going to talk today a little bit about her design and about her experience as being a 3/6 profile. Welcome, Elaine. Good to have you here today.
Hi, Natalie. It's good to be here.
Well,
yeah,
let's just take a breath.
it's a lot.
I think, just for our audience to know that you and I have known each other over a decade through human design. And would you be willing to share like your experience, like how you found human design and when that was, and what's kind of been your journey with the system?
Yeah. Wow. I've always been on the path of sort of maximizing human potential. I think is how I was kind of started out when I was in my, in my teens even. And been on a journey of sort of uncovering that and what it means to be human, fully human. And I have a whole background, family of origin, original kind of dynamic that kind of really thrust me down this road anyway, and immigrated from South Africa to the United States in the early 2000s, and still on this journey of what self-expression really is, and what it means to be healthy and well, working in that industry, in the corporate sector, doing coaching, doing health education, doing those sorts of fitness and well-being programs in the corporations. I got I worked in multiple companies in the Bay Area and San Francisco, some of the bigger names, if you want to call it such. But it was through the coaching program that I was helping a particular director create, and she pointed me towards human design. And she said it was fascinating, and she was a psychologist turned coach, found human design in her own process, but I stumbled upon it through her. And she was my biggest advocate. She really supported me as I was trying to navigate my 3/6 profile within a corporation. And she said, no, you need to go and do this 2-day course down in San Diego, which happened to be at the time, I think it was in 2004, 2005, somewhere in there, maybe 2006. And it was with Linda Brunel, I think her name is.
Linda Bunnell.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was her husband, but a guy by the name of Tom as well.
Tom Stone.
And they just kind of shared the fundamentals. We didn't really research the chart in great depth or anything, but it was pretty profound to kind of take in all that information. What I really liked about it was the fact that it had integrated so many aspects of ancient philosophies about well-being and what it means to be well as a human being. And I like that. To me, that was a nice shortcut for me personally on my journey. So I wouldn't have to study the I Ching first, and then the Hindu chakra system, and then so it kind of just brought it all together for me in one fell swoop. And then I sort of went off and lived my life, and for maybe a year or so, and then it was time for me to re-explore this. And that's when I met you, Natalie. I was 2 weeks short of my 30th birthday, quite auspicious, as I was climbing up onto this roof. And and my journey has been sort of a process of really living for a good period of time, maybe 5 or so years, just living my strategy and authority within the scope of immigration and everything that was going on for me. But the true profundity of it all really struck me when I had my first child. So then basically the the rubber hit the road, as they say, in terms of really getting behind it and understanding it. And so that's really had my children's charts run, had more sessions with you, and I've had other coaching sessions with you, coaching programs. And so my journey has sort of just been very organic and unfolding. Yeah, brings me to today, really. That's pretty much it.
And how old are your children now?
Vanessa is going to be 12 and Laird will be 9.
Wow. Yeah, so interesting to be able to come into human design from a professional perspective, and actually kind of like a referral from professionally, and then to get into it and see the you know, how the jolt or the leap that you took personally. And then to when your kids were born, it's like, well, I got to know what their charts say, right?
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I can understand how that would really open it up, because you'd have an opportunity to, I mean, you're living with them and you're watching them grow and change and watching their potential emerge or not. And then, you know, how your chart compares to their chart, and so many layers of it that are available in the family environment. And I'm so curious to hear more about that. And I'm sure our audiences that we are going to do a separate video about raising, how you've raised your child, one of them in particularly, with the human design. But for now, I want to jump back into your chart. So we see here that she is a manifesting generator. The 34 to the 20 makes her someone that is specialized in being in action when she has a lot of passion and interest in that. Looks like human design must have landed in your sacral at some point.
Yeah.
So to speak. And also, like, there's a real strong definition here from the 41 to the 30 to the 36. This is called the experiential wave. And the 41 wants something new, wants to have a new experience. And so human design, again, and many other things in your life, but since we're talking about human design, gave you this new experience. And the other channel, or excuse me, the other center that you have colored in comes from you having the 10th gate here in your Venus. So you have, out of the 9 centers, you have 5 of them colored in. So, but what we wanted to share today for our audience is about you being a role model, and a role model in the profile being on the unconscious side. So this, where we get the profile from, if people are new and don't know that, we take the top 2 numbers are always the same. We've got the hexagram, the bigger number, and the smaller number on the sides. So we take the 3 and the 6. And when Elaine and I were talking about, would she be, you know, when I was inviting her, she wanted to do this video with me and talk about the 3-6, because I am writing a book for role models, and I realized that there's 4 different profiles that include the 6, making them a role model profile. And the one that I had the least amount of experience with was the 3-6, other than I've known Elaine for over a decade, as I mentioned. So I've had a few other 3-6 profiles show up in my life. And then when I looked up the percentages, it's a very unique profile, that there's only 2.25% of you people on the planet that are the 3-6.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted just to lay the groundwork for is that in the I Ching lines, there's 6 of them, and some lines get along better with others than not. And the two lines that are in harmony is the 3 and the 6. And you have that in your profile. And so what I understand from that is that within yourself, there is, like, maybe not in the early years, but at some point there's a feeling of maybe a congruency, or it's not like the 6-2 or the 4-6 where they've, you know, they're like two different people inside themselves. You're very familiar with the theme of the three, which in human design, they call that the martyr, or the person that trial and error and testing things out. So I wonder if you could share with us, a little bit about this how it feels inside of you, if you can make that distinction with having such a strong theme of trial and error in your life. I mean, does any stories show up, maybe something from early on when you first found out, if there was like a big aha that happened for you, and then maybe how you've seen that play out in your life since then? Couple examples.
Oh, wow. What I found really profound was looking back at my life, having understood human design more over the years, and then looking back, even prior to finding human design specifically, and noticing the themes that my profile kind of indicates. So the unconscious role model piece is truly unconscious. I am when I was younger, like in school, in my teens, young, the trial and error aspect showed up intensely. I had a very small box that I had to play in, but within that box, I tried everything under the sun. So in my world, it was sports and activity and all kinds of things that I was allowed per my parenting to do. And so I performed and I excelled in that small box because I had, like in essence, in hindsight, it was a focus. It was giving me focus, and I didn't open up my playing field that much so that I could be all over the place. I only had this box, and I found it very limiting and extremely frustrating. But at the same time, I excelled. So it was this really interesting dynamic at play. And through that process of embodying it, because it was a physical experimentation through all the sports and things, I was given rulership or leadership positions. I never sought them out. I never wanted to be team captain. I didn't want to be head girl or whatever it is in school. I just was. And I didn't try to be anything when I was it. I just continued doing what I was doing because I wasn't the wiser. And it worked for me in essence. So I have call it accolades, if you will, and I didn't try. Then if you jump forward to when I immigrated to the United States, I escaped my box.
I want to just stop for a second though, because I think you brought up some really good points, and something that I've never heard someone with a lot of flavor of 3 in their chart was the word focus. And the container of which you had, and that I was just seeing you in this box and trying, every little corner, and, is there a door to open? Nope, that door won't open. Okay, I'm going to go over here.
Yes.
But that you saw that as a focused container. And the other piece, I mean, the word focus just jumped out at me. The other word that jumped out at me was the word leadership, or being elevated, because your chart shows a little bit of leadership in it, but mostly I see that it's coming because they could see the role model, and the role model is a natural leader. But when it's on the unconscious side, the individual doesn't really see themselves as a leader, or doesn't really see, especially in the younger years, does not see the potential that's contained within the role model. And but other people see it, and that's how we learn about who we are on the unconscious, is when we pay attention to our teachers or our co-workers or our friends or whatever. What do they say about us? What do they see about us that we're not aware of? And it's like, oh yeah, so you were seen as as someone that could take responsibility, that someone that could lead or be a quote unquote role model for the others.
Yeah, and that became really more conscious for me when I stumbled upon the Waldorf education system prior to having children. And one of their tenets is that you've got to be worthy of being role model. You've got to be worthy of a role model. You've got to have you've got to do it. And to me, that sort of kind of connected the dots, was like, oh, that's the role model piece, because now I had more human design understanding. So I was like, oh, okay. So that's how it would apply to, parenting in my case. Yeah, going back to then coming to the US, and then my container was massive. It was huge. I could come and go wherever I wanted. And besides, it was really, it was overwhelming, actually, the degree to which I could be exposed to trainings and learnings and people and places and all these things. And that is taking a long time for me to kind of really, without that container that was enforced upon me. There have been other containers that have subsequently showed up out of the blue, like financial limitations, as an example, which keeps me in a different kind of box, or my work permit when I first got here. So there was that. So there was these little containers that were still in place, but in the bigger scheme of things, I had a lot more freedom. So it was this really interesting dynamic between confinement and space that I've been kind of playing with in different themes for different, in different phases. So yeah, I forget your question now. I don't want to waffle.
No, you answered it because you were taking us into when you came to the States. But again, you bring up this point that is really interesting for me, because I've never heard anyone really describe it this way. And almost like for a 3/6, here's my imagination. We've got the tendency, the potential, the wiring. I kind of call it like your software program. What's included in your software program is that you're going to try a lot of things, and both people and projects and maybe even jobs or interests or whatever.
Yes.
I see there's a lot of experimentation. It's naturally, wired in. And it's, what's coming to me is like there was something that was taking care of you, be it a higher knowing or just, what your soul chose, is that there was something that's like, okay, we're going to make her or she's going to come in with this program, but we're going to give her a safe place to try it all out. Because the point I'm trying to make is that I think a 3/6 and also the 6/3 of, there's another interview that I've done with the 6/3, is that they can, if the bigger the container is, the more they're going to experiment. Would you agree with that, or do you notice that with your profile or the 6/3?
Honestly, I haven't bumped into many other 3/6/6/3 profiles, and I know that they're the kind that would be highly compatible, which would be an absolute relief to have a conversation with somebody like that and just feel free to just kind of be seen for all the pieces.
I might be able to help you with that.
Yeah, I know.
I can introduce you to a 6/3 that I think would be interested to speak with you as well. So.
Yeah. I think it's just that being a completely different kind of point, that in terms of the freedom and the confinement, if you will, I've really had that experience of wanting complete and utter freedom, wanting it and not being held. I don't like clock time. I don't like, I try my best to stick to routines, but I struggle. I don't like to be told what to do. I mean, things like that. And then at the same time, just kind of touching on raising the projector child that I had, she she directed me into a focused point that I was literally sitting on my butt for a year while I nursed her, and I wasn't allowed to come and go. And that container of being held in a position of, call it confinement, if you will, but focus as directed by my projector child, was very difficult in the beginning, because that's not at all what I was anticipating. But that in and of itself gave me another container in which I was kind of ping pong balling around, trying to, really embrace it. So I think the theme for me has been little pockets like that, of playing fields, maybe, if I can call it
So
such.
you brought up motherhood, and just from your perspective, and we're talking about the profile, can you see how your desire or your need for experimentation with motherhood? How would a 3-6 approach motherhood, or how did you as a 3-6 approach motherhood? And then also, you're within this demanding new energy that's now you're responsible for. But I would imagine that there was you still had to keep changing, keep experimenting, keep finding the solutions, right?
Yes.
Keep innovating.
Yes. I know that I have a lot of energy for that. I can fail and not feel bad about it. It doesn't immobilize me, not for long, maybe a couple hours or so, at worst a day. And then I sort of bounce right back. And I used to attribute it to my sporting background, where you have to learn to lose well. And I think that did play a role, but I think in general, if I compare myself to my husband, for example, who doesn't have that trial and error process in his chart of, in his field, it really takes him out when he doesn't succeed at what it is that he thought he wanted to succeed at. As it relates to raising
I gotta stop you again. I'm sorry, because this is a huge thing. This making this mistake thing. I coach people all the time, like the definition. As like I used to say, I want the word mistake taken out of the dictionary. There is no such thing. So I think it's really good for people to hear from you that how you approach it, and that it's like it's okay. It's like, okay, that didn't work, or I learned this from that. Did you do a lot of like, what did I learn from that?
Yes.
Experience, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think that is the process of refinement that I'm going through, because I have this deep-seated, probably soul mission, soul path, where I'm here to really distill down the pieces of what it means to be human. And so, and how to pass that forward by not forgetting what has worked. So it's like I'm all about, progression in the future, and creating an environment, a world for my children and others. It's just, so there is this necessary trial and error. And I've tried a lot of things. I've traveled around the world trying to find the appropriate school for my projected child. I have interviewed, and I've requested things like, can my child please meet the teacher she's going to have, so that she can have an experience of the teacher and get her instinctive yes or no about the teacher? And no would be the response from the registrar or whatever. And that would be an answer, and I wouldn't bother with the school. And so we've been around the world. We've immigrated 4 times internationally, back and forth, looking for what would essentially be family wellness, which is the container in which I'm trying to maximize this human potential piece in this dynamic of family, and really trying to promote that health and well-being in that zone. From having, I guess I read a lot of books because I didn't have a good role model of what I would believe to be mature parenting. and I needed to find more information. So yeah, there was lots of book reading, there was lots of course taking. And I will say that human design has really been, yet as I don't want to use the word container, but it is like a foundation and like a sort of overarching. I want to say it nurtures, because within that zone we have of, say, parenting and mothering. There's so many things. Attachment parenting, and then there's the food, and then there's how to discipline, and all these things, which, had I not had human design as a framework, that's the word, a framework, my husband and I both can, we're the first to admit that had we not met human design, it would not have been very easy to raise the projected child that we have. And I can see that profoundly once I realized that my mother was a projector who has the same profile and cross, what do you call it? The
incarnation
cross as my daughter. And I know exactly how not to do it. She's
Wow.
like this perfect role model of how not to do,
Wow.
raise
So
my
that was
daughter.
actually part of this experimentation.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Well, I'd like to
and
explore that more. And I think kind of where I want to take our conversation before we close here is about the Chiron. Because
Okay.
that's a big thing for all role models, and the different phases. And I'm just going to look at your chart here that tells me that you are in the middle of your Chiron return. And so your exact date would be March 25th, 2024. So I'm gonna just let that go now and just talk to you about your experience with as being a role model or going through the Chiron. So March 24th, 2024, or May 24th. So it's like 3.5 years leading up. So you haven't quit, you haven't hit the apex yet. In 2024, you will, and then another 3.5 years afterwards. So you're in the more challenging part, in my experience, of getting through that phase that comes when, around the time that people are turning 50. And there's so many other resources that I have about describing the Chiron. I'm not going to go into detail right now. So here you are. I feel your wisdom, your transparency, the way that you look at your life, and the objective part of you seeing what happened in the past and how that's all integrating into your future. And you've been a full-time mother for 12 years, right? Or maybe going on 13, and wanting to re-enter into into some career, or I don't know if you're planning on crafting a business and really packaging in a way this amazing wisdom that you have about health and wellness and children and human design, and all the migrations that you and your whole family have done together. And yet here you are, you're still, there's like all this potential in you to help others. And here you are at Chiron, and it's like you're in it's the caterpillar is still in the chrysalis.
Yes.
It's still in the mush. And I think it would be really helpful for people to hear how you cope with that, and the frustration of that, and the timing of that you're just, there's a part of you that knows I'm just not there yet. And I imagine there's another part of you, being a manifesting generator, that the racehorse is at the gate and wants to go somewhere. So how do you cope with that, being on the roof, as the traditional human design called that phase?
Wow. How do I distill a deeply experiential phase? I know that I have the the degree of my internal focus on me has, over the last 3 years specifically, has gone exponential, or very selfish, period, selfish. And learning really strong boundaries that I wasn't capable of before. And I believe they're healthier than they've ever been. And as my family members are orienting around that, it's highlighting where I was healing them, saving them, trying to adjust myself to their needs in a way that wasn't as balanced or healthy. And it just so happens to coincide with both my children going through their own developmental turnovers. So my daughter's busy going into the preteen space, and my son is busy leaving his, those 7, 8 years of childhood, and he's going into that other space. So they're also doing this huge transition where they need more independence. So it's quite beautiful for me how I've watched that. My husband, on the other hand, has probably experienced it the most traumatically, because his profile and my profile require a lot of understanding. And because of the healer that I am, I've been compensating too long on his side of things. And so I'm just learning this really complicated dance, really. It's a new dance. And so my internal focus has improved. I have been doing courses and things that have helped me with meditation. And I have done a lot more because of my, what channel is that? The 10, what's the one that goes up?
10 to the 20, yeah.
Yeah, the self-love components. I've really begun adopting that over the last year. And it has had ripple effects in terms of what's come back to me. Little things like the neighbor brings sourdough bread, a loaf randomly. The reflection of self-love has just sort of, it's come back. And, it's difficult in that I really want to go. I want to do something. And my husband does have that energy that pushes me because he can see my potential. And so he does push me. So I'm having to really learn to hold my ground, and I'm not ready yet. I love you, but I'm not ready yet. And I have to really own my space. That has probably been the hardest thing, because I can see the almost angst in his space around, are you going to actually ever be able to pull through? And, I've begun communicating that I don't know if it's going to come through the way that you think it's going to come through, because I have to honor myself. And so it might come through in a whole different way. But yeah, so yeah.
Well, I hope that people are on the roof listen to this, like this section of this recording, like 4 or 5 times, because I couldn't say it better. Like, what do you do while you're on the roof? It's like you get very selfish. You change your boundaries. You get really serious. You look at the relationships that you're in and how are they working? How are they not? And then how do you adjust to that? And yeah. Your husband, he, Neil has, seen you be a certain way, and then all of a sudden you hit Chiron and you go, oh, this stuff, I can't go forward with things this way, with relating in this way. Correct. So yeah, it's going to cause a stir in your personal life. And for those people that are, got co-workers or working, it's going to change the dynamics of your professional life as well when you go through Chiron. But we'll come back and we'll have another chat with Elaine when she's on the other side of this to see how it turns out. But yeah, great advice, great advice. Well, I just so appreciate your time and your sharing your wisdom. and really describing, I think, some things that are really that people can really relate to in their human design journey, and hopefully inspire them to stay with it. You know, stay with it. There's so much available in the system as we mature and go through all these different phases. So
Yeah.
anyway, I just want to say thank you one more time. I really appreciate your time
Thank
and
you.
your wisdom today, and want to invite people, if you want to subscribe to my channel, please do that. Elaine's information will be in the notes if you want to have a conversation with her, and stay tuned because I am writing a book for all role models. So thanks so much for listening, and thank you again, Elaine.
Thanks.